The last transport ship from Earth touched down on Ashfall Station with a sound like thunder rolling across dead mountains. Torvak watched it land from the observation deck, his four arms crossed tight against his chest. His scales, dark green like forest shadows, seemed to grow darker with his mood. Humans, he said the word like it tasted bad. They send us humans. Behind him, Fleet Commander Asen let out a long breath. The elderly Mithrani was tired. 3 months of fighting the hollow swarm had taken everything from him. His proud fleet was broken. His soldiers were dying faster than replacements could arrive. And now, the Galactic Council had answered his request for reinforcements with this insult. They were all that was available, Asen said quietly. We must make use of what we have. What we have is a species that has been in space for barely 200 years. Torvak turned to face his commander. My family has served the Empire for 3,000 years. My ancestors conquered star systems while humans were still living in mud houses. And now I am expected to fight beside them. Asen raised one clawed hand. You are expected to observe them. Learn their methods. Report back to me. Nothing more. The transport's doors opened, and Torvak watched the humans step out onto Mithrani soil. They were small creatures, soft-skinned and fragile-looking. They had only 2 arms, 2 legs, and faces that showed every emotion they felt. Weak, Torvak thought. How did they even survive on their own world? Then he saw her. The woman who led them walked like someone who had seen death many times and was no longer impressed by it. She was not tall, not by Mithrani standards, but she moved with a purpose that made the space around her feel smaller. Her dark hair was cut short, and a scar ran from her left ear to her jaw. Her eyes scanned the landing area, missing nothing. Sergeant Rena Kaur. Torvak had read her file. 34 years old, veteran of 3 colonial wars, decorated 6 times, disciplined 4 times for disobeying orders. The reports called her tactics unconventional. Torvak called them reckless. She spotted him watching and walked straight toward him. Her squad followed, 15 humans carrying weapons and equipment that looked almost primitive compared to Mithrani technology. You must be my babysitter, Rena said when she reached him. Her voice was calm, almost friendly, but her eyes were measuring him like a predator sizing up competition. I am Warrior Torvak of House Varen. I am assigned to observe your unit and report on human combat effectiveness. Combat effectiveness. Rena smiled, but it did not reach her eyes. That's a fancy way of saying you're here to watch us fail, so you can tell everyone humans are useless. Torvak said nothing. She was not wrong. Well, Warrior Torvak of House Varen, you're welcome to watch all you want. Just try to keep up. She walked past him without waiting for a response. Her soldiers followed, some of them nodding at Torvak with what might have been respect or might have been pity. He was not sure which was worse. Within an hour, the humans had their assignment. Sector 7, a crumbling outpost on the station's outer ring. It was the worst defensive position on Ashfall, a place where the walls were thin and the swarm had already broken through twice. Previous defenders had lasted an average of 6 days before being overrun. Torvak delivered the news himself, expecting arguments or complaints. Instead, Rena just nodded and started giving orders. Her people moved with quiet efficiency, unpacking their gear, checking their weapons, studying maps of the surrounding tunnels. You know this position is a death sentence, Torvak said. I know this position is where they put soldiers they don't expect to survive. Rena did not look up from her tactical display. We've been put in death sentences before. We're still here. The swarm will come through those tunnels. Thousands of them. Your weapons cannot stop that many. Now she looked at him. Then I guess we'll have to be creative. That night, the swarm came. Not thousands, but hundreds, a probing attack to test the new defenders. Torvak had positioned himself on a raised platform to observe, expecting to watch humans die. What he saw instead changed something inside him. The humans did not fight like Mithrani. They did not stand in proud formation or follow proper doctrine. They fought like wild animals protecting their young. They used the broken walls as cover, falling back and advancing in waves. When one soldier ran out of ammunition, another was already covering them. When the swarm broke through one section, the humans collapsed the ceiling on them using mining charges. Rena was everywhere at once, shouting orders, pulling wounded soldiers to safety, firing her weapon with deadly accuracy. She took a swarm claw across her arm and did not even slow down. She just wrapped it tight, and kept fighting. By dawn, the swarm had retreated. The humans had lost 2 soldiers. They had killed over 300 swarm warriors. Torvak climbed down from his platform and walked through the aftermath. Human soldiers were helping their wounded, sharing water, even laughing about close calls. One of them offered him a drink from a metal container. He declined. Rena found him standing over a dead swarm warrior. "Still think we're useless?" she asked. Before he could answer, an alarm rang through the station. Emergency broadcast. All channels. Massive swarm force detected. All units to defensive positions. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. Rena listened to the coordinates and her jaw tightened. That's coming straight for the command center. And it's coming through us first. Torvak's communicator buzzed. Commander Asen's voice came through, heavy with resignation. Sector 7 is to hold position. No reinforcements available. You are designated as delay force. Buy us time. The line went dead. Rena looked at Torvak. You should leave. Get back to your people. This isn't your fight. Torvak looked at the humans around him, already preparing for another battle they were not supposed to survive. He thought about his house, his honor, his 3,000 years of proud heritage. Then he drew his weapons. Tonight, he said, it is. Davi Santos was singing. In the middle of preparing explosives that could level a building, with thousands of swarm warriors approaching through the tunnels below, the human demolitions expert was singing some song about sunshine and clear skies. Torvak found this deeply disturbing. Is he damaged in the head? He asked Rena, who was checking ammunition counts nearby. Davi. No, he's just happy. She shrugged like this explained everything. He used to work the mines on Europa. Says compared to cave-ins and oxygen leaks, fighting alien bugs is practically a vacation. We are about to die. Maybe. Probably not. Either way, Davi's going to sing. Rena slapped a fresh power cell into her rifle. You get used to it. Torvak was beginning to understand that humans were insane. Not stupid, not weak, but genuinely, completely insane. No sane species would react to certain death with music and jokes that a young Mathrani soldier stumbled into their position just as the sun began to set. His uniform was torn and covered in swarm blood. One of his 4 arms hung limp at his side. He collapsed against a broken wall, breathing hard. Easy, easy. Rena was beside him in seconds, calling for the medic. You're safe now. What's your name? Private Gell. The young soldier's eyes were wide with terror. My unit. The tunnels. They came from everywhere. Everyone else is dead. Not everyone. You made it. Rena helped him sit up as Dr. Amara Obi arrived with her medical kit. And you're going to keep making it. Understood. Gell looked at her like she was speaking a foreign language. In Mathrani culture, surviving when your unit died was shameful. You were expected to die with your brothers. Running meant you were a coward. But the human was looking at him without judgment, without disgust. She was looking at him like he mattered. I don't. I ran. I should have stayed. I should have died with them. You should have survived, Rena said firmly. And you did. That takes courage too. Now catch your breath, let the doctor fix that arm, and get ready to fight again. We need every soldier we can get. Torvak watched this exchange with growing confusion. By all Mathrani laws, this soldier deserved contempt. Instead, the humans were treating him like a valued comrade. Amara spoke to him gently while she worked on his wounds. Davi brought him water and made some stupid joke that actually made the young Mathrani smile. What? Torvak asked Rena quietly. He abandoned his post. His honor is destroyed. His honor is whatever he decides it is from this moment forward. Rena's voice was hard. I've seen soldiers break and I've seen soldiers run. The ones who come back, who pick up their weapons and keep fighting. Those are the ones worth having. Everyone gets one bad moment. What matters is what comes after. The ground began to shake. They were coming. Torvak had never seen a full swarm assault. He had read about them, studied them in military academy, but nothing had prepared him for the reality. The creatures poured out of the tunnels like black water, thousands of them, their chitinous bodies clicking and scraping against stone. Their eyes glowed faint blue in the darkness, and their jaws opened and closed with hungry anticipation. Here we go, Davi shouted and pressed a button. The first wave of explosions tore through the swarm's front lines. Bodies flew through the air. The creatures screamed, a sound like metal being torn apart. But more came, always more, climbing over the bodies of their dead to reach the defenders. The humans opened fire. Torvak fought beside them, his forearms moving faster than any human could match, cutting down swarm warriors with blade and energy pistol. But he kept glancing at the humans, unable to look away from how they fought. They covered each other. When one soldier reloaded, two others stepped forward to protect them. When someone took a wound, hands reached out to pull them back while others filled the gap. They moved like parts of a single organism, anticipating each other's needs without speaking. "Left tunnel," Rena shouted, and three soldiers were already turning before she finished the words that a swarm warrior broke through the line and lunged for Amara, who was dragging a wounded soldier to cover. Gel intercepted it, his three working arms grabbing the creature while his injured one hung useless. He could not hold it long, but he did not have to. Rena's shot took the warrior through its skull. "Good work, Private," she said. Already moving to the next threat, Gel's eyes were different now. The shame was gone, replaced by something fiercer. He picked up a fallen rifle and started shooting. Hours passed. The ammunition ran low. The walls crumbled. Soldiers fell, and others took their places. Davi ran out of explosives and started using a mining drill as a weapon, carving through swarm warriors with industrial equipment never designed for combat. Then, finally, the creatures stopped coming. Dawn light crept through the cracks in the ceiling. The floor was covered with swarm bodies. The defenders, human and Mithrani alike, stood among them, exhausted but alive. "We held," Torvak said. His voice sounded strange to his own ears. He had never doubted they would fall. He had been wrong. "We held," Rena agreed. She was covered in blood, most of it not her own. "But look," she pointed through a gap in the wall. In the distance, they could see the main swarm force moving not toward them, but past them, toward the command center, toward the heart of the station. "They used us as a distraction," Torvak realized. "While we fought here, their main force bypassed us. The command center will fall within hours. All the senior officers, all the command staff." Rena's jaw tightened. "Unless someone stops them. We cannot stop them. We are too few, too tired, too far away. There are mining tunnels that run beneath the station. Old ones, abandoned. If we move fast, we can get behind them." Torvak stared at her. "That would be suicide. We would be outnumbered 1,000 to 1. Rena smiled. It was not a nice smile. "Then it's a good thing humans are too stupid to know when to quit." She turned to her soldiers, her voice carrying across the broken outpost. "Anyone who wants to sit this one out, no shame. You've earned it. But I'm going to save that command center. Who's coming with me?" Every single human stepped forward. And after a moment, so did Private Gel. Torvak closed his eyes. He thought about doctrine, about proper military strategy, about everything he had been taught. Then he opened his eyes and stepped forward too. "You humans," he said, "are absolutely insane." Rena laughed. "We know. Now let's move." The old mining tunnels smelled like rust and forgotten time. Rena led the way with a dim light attached to her rifle, the beam cutting through darkness that had not been disturbed in decades. Behind her walked what remained of her squad, plus one traumatized private and one increasingly confused Mithrani warrior. Torvak had spent his entire life believing in order, plans, doctrine. The Mithrani way of war was built on 10,000 years of careful study, mathematical precision, and overwhelming force. You did not attack unless you had superior numbers. You did not advance unless you had secured your flanks. You did not take risks. And yet here he was, walking through a forgotten tunnel with a handful of exhausted soldiers, planning to attack an army. "This goes against everything I was taught," he said quietly to Rena. "Yeah, well, welcome to human warfare." She did not slow down. "Our whole species learned to fight by being smaller and weaker than everything else on our planet. We figured out pretty early that playing by the rules just gets you eaten. So you cheat. We adapt." She glanced back at him with something that might have been respect. "The swarm expects us to defend. They expect us to follow patterns. They don't expect anyone to be crazy enough to come after them. Because it is crazy. Probably." Rena shrugged. "But crazy has kept humans alive for a long time." They walked in silence for a while. The only sounds were footsteps and the distant drip of water from cracks in the ceiling. Then Davi, walking near the back, started humming. "I swear I will shoot him myself," Torvak muttered. Rena smiled. "He grows on you. Like a fungal infection." The smile turned into something warmer. "You're learning human humor. I'm impressed." They found the first sign of the swarm an hour later. Organic material had been spread across the tunnel walls, pulsing faintly with bioluminescent light. The air grew warmer, thicker, harder to breathe. They were getting close to the hive. Amara moved up beside Rena, her medical bag clutched tight against her chest. I've studied swarm biology. This material is how they expand their territory. They're building a nest beneath the command center. Can we burn it? Torvak asked. We could, but the smoke would alert them. We need to stay quiet as long as possible. They pressed on, moving slowly, carefully. The organic walls grew thicker. Strange sounds echoed from side passages, clicks and scrapes and wet noises that Torvak tried not to think about too hard. Then they found the prisoners' side chamber had been converted into a holding area. Mithrani soldiers hung from the walls, wrapped in organic cocoons that left only their faces exposed. Most were unconscious. Some were dead. 3 were still awake, their eyes tracking movement as the rescue party entered. Ancestors have mercy, Torvak breathed. Rena was already moving, pulling out her knife to cut the cocoons. Get them down. All of them. We don't have time for this. Even as he said it, Torvak knew it was wrong. But doctrine demanded he say it. The mission is to reach the command center. Every minute we delay, more swarm arrive. Rena stopped cutting and turned to face him. Her eyes were hard. These are your people. Your soldiers. They're right here, and we can save them. How is that not the mission? Because if the command center falls, hundreds more will die. Thousands. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. I've heard that argument before. Rena went back to cutting. Usually from people who aren't the ones being left behind. She freed the first soldier, who collapsed into Davi's waiting arms. In my experience, the moment you start deciding some lives aren't worth saving, you stop deserving to save any of them. Torvak stood frozen. Everything he had been taught said she was wrong. The mathematics were clear. You sacrifice the few to save the many. That was strategy. That was wisdom. But looking at the Mithrani soldiers being pulled from the walls, seeing their faces, knowing their names would be in military files somewhere, he could not make himself walk away. That he started cutting. They freed 8 soldiers. 5 were too far gone, their bodies already being consumed by the cocoons. The 3 who were conscious could barely stand, but they refused to be left behind. We can still fight, one of them said, a female soldier with silver scales and broken claws. Give us weapons. Let us die with honor. How about you live with honor instead? Rena handed her a pistol. Stay in the middle of the group. Shoot anything that gets close. And try not to die, because I just spent 10 minutes cutting you free and I'd hate for that to be wasted. The soldier stared at her. No Mithrani commander would speak to a wounded soldier that way. It was almost disrespectful, but it was also exactly what the soldier needed to hear. I will try not to disappoint you. Human, she said. They moved deeper. The tunnels opened into larger chambers, clearly carved by the swarm to create their underground nest. They saw things that would haunt them forever. Harvesting chambers where captured soldiers were being slowly transformed into swarm drones. Nurseries filled with eggs that pulsed with malevolent life. And everywhere, the constant movement of swarm workers, building and expanding and consuming. There, Rena pointed through a gap in the organic wall. Beyond, they could see the massive bulk of the command center's foundations. And wrapped around those foundations, protected by hundreds of elite warriors, was the brood mother. She was huge, larger than any swarm creature they had ever seen. Her body a bloated mass of chitin and flesh, constantly producing eggs that smaller creatures carried away to the nurseries. Multiple heads sprouted from her form, each one scanning in different directions, watching everything. We'll never get close enough, Amara whispered. There are too many guards. We need a distraction. Rena looked at the wounded Mithrani soldiers. She did not ask. She would not ask, but the silver-scaled female understood anyway. We will do it, she said. No. Torvak grabbed her arm. You've done enough. You've suffered enough. This is not your duty. You are wrong, warrior. She gently removed his hand. You taught us duty. Your people showed us what it means to serve. She looked at Rena. But the humans taught us something else. They taught us that some things are worth dying for. Not because we are ordered to, but because we choose to. She gathered the other 2 wounded soldiers. They checked their weapons, looked at each other, and nodded. Tell our families we died as warriors, she said. And tell them we died beside friends. They moved before anyone could stop them. Rena watched them go, her face unreadable. Make their sacrifice count, she said quietly. Everyone else, on me. We end this now. Behind them, the sounds of gunfire erupted as 3 wounded soldiers declared war on an empire of monsters. Ahead, the broodmother turned her many heads toward the noise, and Rena led her people into the heart of darkness. Jira Patel had not spoken more than 20 words since landing on Ashfall Station. She carried a long rifle that she called Kindness, which everyone agreed was deeply strange. She moved like a shadow and killed like a whisper. Now, as the squad pushed deeper into the swarm nest, she proved why she was the most decorated sniper in the human colonial forces. A swarm scout appeared from a side tunnel, mandibles clicking in alarm. Jira fired once. The creature dropped without making a sound. Another emerged from above, climbing down the organic walls. Another shot. Another silent death. She cleared their path with mechanical precision, never wasting ammunition, never missing. She scares me a little, Gel admitted to Torvak as they moved. She scares everyone, Torvak replied. I believe that is the point. The distraction created by the wounded Mithrani soldiers was working. Swarm warriors rushed toward the gunfire, leaving the path to the brood mother less guarded. But they could all hear the shooting growing quieter, more sporadic. The brave soldiers were running out of time. They reached the entrance to the central chamber. Beyond, they could see the brood mother more clearly now. Her body filled most of the space, a living factory of death and reproduction. Her guard warriors surrounded her, each one twice the size of normal swarm fighters, their carapaces thick enough to deflect standard weapons. How do we kill something that big? Davi asked. You don't kill the body. Rena pointed at a cluster of organic nodes near what might have been the creature's head. You kill the mind. Those neural clusters are how she controls the hive. Destroy them, and the whole swarm in this sector goes brain dead. Getting close enough to hit them is the problem, Amara said. Not for me. Jira checked her rifle. I can hit those nodes from here, but I need a clear shot. Someone has to pull those guards away. Everyone looked at each other. Pulling the guards away meant getting their attention. Getting their attention meant fighting them. Fighting them meant dying, Davi grinned. Well, I always wanted to go out doing something memorable. He pulled out his last mining charge, the one he had been saving. Give me 30 seconds, then shoot the big, ugly mother. Davi, no. Rena grabbed his arm. There has to be another way. Maybe. But we don't have time to find it, and you know it. He looked at her with surprising softness. I was always going to die in a hole somewhere, Sarge. At least this way it means something. He pulled away before she could stop him and ran into the chamber, screaming at the top of his lungs. The guards turned. All of them. Davi was one small human making more noise than anything they had ever encountered, and their instincts demanded they eliminate the threat. They charged toward him, leaving the brood mother exposed. Jira raised Kindness, breathed out slowly, and fired. The first neural cluster exploded. The brood mother screamed, a sound that shook the walls and made everyone grab their ears in pain. Jira fired again. Another cluster burst apart. The creature thrashed, her massive body crashing against the organic walls that in the chaos. Davi reached her egg sacs. He smiled, pressed the detonator, and disappeared in fire. The explosion ripped through the chamber. Eggs burst and burned. The brood mother screamed again, this time in agony rather than rage. Her guards stumbled, confused, their connection to her fading as her mind died piece by piece. Now, Rena shouted, and led the charge. They poured into the chamber, firing at everything that moved. Gel fought beside Torvak, the young soldier showing none of the fear that had paralyzed him before. Amara stayed back, picking off wounded swarm with careful shots while keeping her medical kit ready. Jira kept firing at the neural clusters, each shot bringing the brood mother closer to death. One of the elite guards recovered enough to lunge at Torvak. He caught its claws with 2 of his arms and struck with the other 2, but the creature was strong. It pushed him back, mandibles snapping at his face. Rena appeared beside him, jamming her rifle into the creature's eye and firing. It collapsed, and she was already moving to the next target. They were winning. Against all odds, against all doctrine, they were actually winning. Then the brood mother spoke. The voice came from everywhere at once, echoing through the chamber in perfect, terrible galactic standard. Not the clicking and screeching of swarm communication, but words. Real words. Foolish creatures. Did you think you could challenge me in my own nest? Rena froze. So did everyone else. I have consumed millions of your kind, the broodmother continued. Her remaining heads turned toward the attackers, eyes burning with ancient intelligence. Your memories, your knowledge, your tactics. I know how Mithrani fight. I know how humans think. You cannot surprise me. She's been absorbing minds, Amara whispered, horrified. Every soldier the swarm captured, she took their knowledge. Yes, the brood mother began to move, her massive body dragging itself toward them despite its wounds. And I have learned that humans are the most dangerous prey in the galaxy. Your bodies are weak. Your technology is primitive. But your minds never stop fighting. Never stop adapting. Never give up. She loomed over them now, blocking the exit. That is why you must all die here. The swarm cannot afford to let your species spread further into the galaxy. You are the wrong prey. Torvak raised his weapons, but he knew it was hopeless. The broodmother was wounded, but not dead. Her remaining guards were recovering. They had come so close, only to fail at the final moment. Then Rena laughed. It was not a sane laugh. It was the laugh of someone who had accepted death and found it funny. You've consumed millions of minds, she said, and you still don't understand us. She looked at the broodmother with something like pity. We never expected to survive this. We just needed to hurt you badly enough that you couldn't win. Above them, through the damaged ceiling, they could hear new sounds. Engines, weapons fire, Mithrani battle cries. The distraction worked, Rena said. While you were focused on us, Ashfall's reserves reached the command center. They're fighting their way down here right now. The broodmother's eyes widened. And your neural clusters are mostly destroyed. Even if you kill us, you won't recover in time to fight them off. The swarm in this sector is finished. Then I will ensure you do not live to see your victory. The broodmother struck, one massive claw sweeping toward Rena. Torvak moved without thinking, pushing himself between them. The claw caught him across the chest, tearing through his armor, sending him crashing against the wall. Through fading vision, he saw Rena scream his name. He saw Jira raise kindness one final time. And he saw the last shot hit the broodmother's primary neural cluster directly. The creature's scream cut off mid-note. Her body spasmed once, twice, and then collapsed. Throughout the chamber, the remaining swarm warriors stopped moving, their connection to the hive mind severed forever. Torvak tried to move, but his body would not respond. He could feel blood, his blood, pooling beneath him. He had never imagined he would die saving a human. Then Rena was beside him, pressing her hands against his wound, shouting for Amara. Stay with me, she ordered. That's a command, warrior. You cannot command me, he tried to say. I outrank you. But darkness took him before he could finish. Torvak woke to the sound of beeping machines and the smell of disinfectant. He opened his eyes slowly, expecting to see the halls of his ancestors, the final resting place of warriors who died in battle. Instead, he saw a hospital ceiling. Welcome back. Rena sat beside his bed, her left arm wrapped in bandages from shoulder to wrist. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, but she was smiling. You scared us for a minute there. I live. Torvak tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. Pain exploded through his chest. The battle. We won. The brood mother is dead. The swarm in this sector has collapsed completely. Rena's smile faded slightly. We lost Avi and the 3 Mithrani soldiers who created the distraction. Their names were Kavra, Pel, and Dorek. I made sure they were recorded. Torvak closed his eyes. He had not known their names. He had watched them walk to their deaths and had not known their names. You saved my life, Rena said quietly. When the broodmother struck, you put yourself between us. You could have died. I almost did die. But you didn't hesitate. She leaned closer. Why? You didn't have to. We were just humans. Inferior soldiers, remember? Observers, not allies. Torvak thought about the question for a long time. He thought about watching humans fight at Sector 7. He thought about Rena reassuring Private Gel when any Mithrani commander would have condemned him. He thought about the squad walking into certain death because there were prisoners who needed saving. Because you would have done the same for me, he finally said. You saved Mithrani soldiers you had never met, soldiers who had treated you like dirt, because that is who you are. I could not stand beside people like that and not become more like them. Rena was silent for a moment. Then she reached out and took his hand, careful not to disturb the medical equipment attached to his arms. "You're not so bad yourself, Torvak of House Varen." The door opened and Amara entered, followed by Private Gel. The young Mithrani soldier looked different than he had before the battle. He stood straighter. His eyes were clearer. The shame that had haunted him was gone. "The High Warrior wants to see you both," Amara said. "Soon as Torvak can walk." High Warrior Kassith survived, thanks to you. The reserves reached the command center just in time. Kassith was leading the defense when they arrived. Amara smiled. "He's been asking about the crazy humans who attacked a brood mother with 15 soldiers. I think he wants to meet you in person." Torvak managed to sit up, ignoring the pain. "Then we should not keep him waiting." Getting to the command center took longer than expected. Torvak's wounds were serious, and even with advanced Mithrani medical technology, he could not move quickly. Rena walked beside him the whole way, ready to catch him if he stumbled. The command center was a mess of scorched walls and broken equipment, but it was still standing. Mithrani soldiers saluted as they passed, which was strange. They were saluting Rena too. Humans never received Mithrani military honors. High Warrior Kassith waited for them in the main hall. He was ancient by Mithrani standards. His scales faded to pale gray, but his eyes were sharp as blades. Around him stood his surviving officers, all of them watching the approaching humans with expressions that ranged from curiosity to suspicion. "So," Kassith said when they stopped before him, "you are the humans who decided to attack an entire swarm nest with a handful of soldiers and a Mithrani observer." "Yes, High Warrior." Rena stood at attention. Behind her, the surviving members of her squad did the same. "My officers tell me this was tactically insane. No doctrine supports such an action. No military academy would teach it. By all rational analysis, you should have failed and died." "We've heard that before, sir." Kassith's eyes narrowed. "And yet here you stand. The brood mother is dead. The swarm threat in this sector is broken. Ashfall Station is saved." He paused. "Warrior Torvak." Torvak stepped forward as best he could. "Yes, High Warrior. Your report states that you chose to join this attack voluntarily. That you fought beside humans as an equal, not as an observer. That you took a wound meant for their commander." Kassith's voice was hard. "You abandoned doctrine. You ignored proper procedure. You behaved in a manner unsuitable for a warrior of House Varen." Torvak said nothing. There was nothing to say. It was all true. "Do you have anything to add before I render judgment?" Torvak thought about lying, about making excuses, about explaining that he had been caught up in the moment, that he had not been thinking clearly. Instead, he spoke the truth. "I watched humans fight, High Warrior. I watched them bleed and die for soldiers they had never met. I watched them walk into certain death because there were people who needed saving. I watched them refuse to abandon anyone, even when doctrine and logic and common sense all said they should." He met Kassith's eyes directly, and I realized that sometimes doctrine is wrong. Sometimes the best thing a warrior can do is throw away the rules and fight for what matters. The room was silent. Then Kassith laughed. It was a rusty sound, like he had not used it in decades, but it was genuine. The old warrior shook his head and turned to his officers. "This is what I have been trying to tell you for 50 years, he said. "This is what we have lost. We became so focused on doctrine that we forgot why we fight. Not for glory, not for honor, not for the empire." He looked at Rena. "We fight for each other." He stepped forward and placed his clawed hand on Torvak's shoulder. "You did not abandon doctrine, warrior. You found something better. You found brotherhood." He turned to face the human soldiers. "All of you. You came to Ashfall Station as auxiliaries, as lesser allies, as soldiers we did not want or trust." He raised his voice so it echoed through the command center. "You leave as warriors, true warriors. The debt Ashfall Station owes you can never be repaid." He saluted. A full Mithrani military salute, the kind reserved only for proven heroes. One by one. Every Mithrani officer in the room did the same. Rena stood frozen for a moment. Then she returned the salute, and her squad followed. "High Warrior," she said, "it was an honor to fight beside your people." "The honor," Kassith replied, "was entirely ours." Later, as they walked back to the medical wing, Torvak found Gel waiting for them. The young soldier looked nervous but determined. "I want to request a transfer," Gel said. "I want to serve with the human units. Permanently." Rena raised an eyebrow. "Why?" "Because I was a coward. I ran when I should have fought. But your people gave me another chance. You taught me that what matters is not the mistakes you make, but what you do after. He straightened his spine. I want to learn more. I want to become the kind of warrior you are. Rena looked at Torvak. Torvak looked at Rena. Welcome to the squad, she said. 1 month after the Battle of Ashfall Station, Torvak stood before the Grand Council of the Mithrani Empire. The chamber was massive, built to hold 1,000 representatives from 100 conquered worlds. Ancient banners hung from the ceiling, each one marking a victory in the Empire's long history of expansion. Today, those banners felt different. Today, they felt like relics of a past that no longer mattered. Warrior Torvak of House Varen, the council speaker announced, you stand before this body to answer for your conduct during the Ashfall campaign. You abandoned established doctrine. You fought beside alien forces as equals. You nearly died protecting a human soldier. The words echoed through the silent chamber. Thousands of eyes watched him, waiting. How do you respond to these charges? Torvak had prepared a speech. He had spent days writing it, practicing it, making sure every word was perfect. It was a speech about duty and honor and the changing nature of warfare, that he threw it away. I respond with a question, he said. How many of you have actually fought beside humans? Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Such directness was not common in council proceedings. I was sent to Ashfall Station to observe, to watch humans fail so that I could confirm what we all believed, that they were inferior warriors unworthy of alliance. Torvak let his gaze move across the assembled representatives. Instead, I watched them succeed where our own forces had failed. I watched them hold positions that we had written off as lost. I watched them walk into certain death because there were prisoners who needed saving. He stepped forward, ignoring the protocol that demanded he remain at his designated position. I watched a human sergeant reassure a Mithrani soldier who had abandoned his unit, not with contempt, but with compassion. I watched a human demolitions expert sing songs while preparing to die. I watched a human medic treat our wounded with the same care she gave her own people. His voice grew stronger. And when the moment came, when I had to choose between following doctrine and protecting people who had become my brothers and sisters in battle, I chose them. I chose them because that is what they would have done for me. That is what they did for me. This is all very touching, one of the older council members said, his voice dripping with skepticism. But sentiment does not win wars. Discipline wins wars. Strategy wins wars. Your humans may have succeeded at Ashfall, but it was through luck and recklessness, not skill. With respect, Counselor, you are wrong. Torvak turned to face the speaker directly. What humans have is something we lost long ago. They do not fight because they believe they will win. They fight because they refuse to let their comrades fall alone. They fight because they believe that every life matters, even the lives of strangers, even the lives of former enemies. He paused, letting the words sink in. We have conquered 100 worlds through strength and discipline, but the Hollow Swarm nearly broke us at Ashfall, not because we lacked strength, but because we had forgotten why we fight. We had become so obsessed with doctrine that we could not adapt. We had become so focused on glory that we forgot about the soldiers standing beside us. And you believe humans can teach us this? The skeptical counselor laughed. They have been in space for 2 centuries. We have ruled the stars for millennia. They have been in space for 2 centuries, Torvak agreed. And in that time, they have survived wars that should have destroyed them. They have built alliances with species that wanted them dead. They have turned enemies into friends through nothing more than stubborn kindness. He smiled. In 2 centuries, they have done what we could not do in 10,000 years. They have made the galaxy want to fight beside them. The chamber fell silent. The council speaker leaned forward. What exactly are you proposing, Warrior Torvak? I am proposing that we stop treating humans as inferior allies. I am proposing that we learn from them, as they are willing to learn from us. I am proposing that the Mithrani Empire enter into a true partnership with Earth, not as masters and servants, but as equals. The debate that followed lasted 6 hours. Voices were raised. Traditions were invoked. Ancient laws were cited. But in the end, when the vote was called, the result was clear. The resolution passed. 2 weeks later, Torvak waited at the main spaceport of the Mithrani homeworld. He had been assigned as liaison to the first official human military delegation, a position that his family's elders had called either a great honor or a great embarrassment, depending on which elder was speaking. The human transport descended through the clouds. sleek and efficient, nothing like the massive warships the Mithrani preferred. It touched down with barely a sound, and the doors opened. Rena Kaur stepped out onto Mithrani soil. She wore a formal uniform now, decorated with medals from 3 governments. Her hair had grown out slightly, and the scar on her jaw had faded. But her eyes were the same, sharp and watchful and full of quiet strength. Behind her came her squad, or what remained of it. Amara, Jira, Gel, who had transferred officially and now wore a hybrid uniform combining human and Mithrani elements. New faces too, soldiers who had heard the stories of Ashfall and wanted to be part of whatever came next. Torvak stepped forward and offered the Mithrani salute of a proven warrior. Rena returned it without hesitation. Sergeant Kaur, welcome to the heart of the Empire. It's Commander Kaur now, actually. She smiled. Apparently, saving an entire sector gets you promoted. Apparently it does. Torvak gestured toward the waiting convoy. The Council is expecting us. They want to hear your thoughts on joint military operations. Lead the way, Warrior Torvak. They walked together through the spaceport, human and Mithrani, while thousands of citizens watched in silence. Some faces showed curiosity. Some showed suspicion. A few showed something that might have been hoped. The entrance to the council chamber, Torvak paused. I never thanked you properly, he said. For everything you taught me. For the warrior you helped me become. Rena put her hand on his arm. You always had it in you. We just helped you remember. They entered the chamber together, human and Mithrani, walking side by side as equals. The banners of 100 conquered worlds looked down on them, remnants of an empire built on strength alone. But today, a new banner would be raised. A banner representing something different. Partnership. Brotherhood. The belief that some things mattered more than glory. The council speaker called the session to order. Representatives of the Mithrani Empire and the human colonial forces, she announced. Today we begin a new chapter in the history of both our peoples. Today we stand not as allies of convenience, but as brothers and sisters in arms. Today we declare to the galaxy that those who fight beside humans earn glory, and those who stand with the Mithrani earn respect. She paused, looking at Rena and Torvak standing together at the center of the chamber. May this alliance endure across the stars. Later that night, at a celebration that brought together soldiers from both species, Torvak found Rena standing alone on a balcony, looking up at the unfamiliar stars. Having second thoughts? He asked. No. She smiled without turning around. Just thinking about how far we've come. A month ago, you thought humans were beneath you. Now look at us. A month ago, I was a fool. Torvak stood beside her. Now I am slightly less of a fool. Rena laughed, and after a moment, Torvak laughed too. Behind them, the sounds of celebration continued. Human voices mixed with Mithrani voices, trading stories and jokes and promises of battles yet to come. Somewhere in the crowd, Gel was teaching a group of Mithrani recruits a human drinking song. Amara was explaining human medical techniques to fascinated Mithrani doctors. Jira sat quietly in a corner, watching everything, missing nothing, and above them all, the stars stretched on forever, full of dangers and wonders and enemies yet to face. But for the first time in a very long time, neither species would face them alone.